It's Rusty Diamond, motherfucker.
Yo, man. It's been a while, and I forget about that.
Yeah.
It's just like, because, yeah, okay, that's there. And sometimes I'm like, should I change that? I thought about
No, don't change it. Don't.
the right people will be there for it, and some people just might not. So,
Yes.
but I'm just gonna bring you on because you're here. There's probably some other way to do that, but
Yeah,
I'm bringing
sure.
you now. So here it is. Here's Heidi Johnson.
Okay.
That's how we're going in. We're just going
Yes,
right.
here I am. Okay. Yeah. What do we want to talk about?
So let's talk about this. So I
Yes.
thought about this about 5 minutes ago because I don't. This is probably as close as I get to having pre-written questions.
Okay.
So, okay, so I've been on a break from doing this show. I did one episode in April, but besides
Okay.
that, I haven't done any since December.
Yeah.
So when you get onto a break, what is kind of your process, or do you go on breaks ever of
Mm,
anything, or are you just always go, 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 and you don't stop, or do you have things spaced out enough that you don't get a need for needing to stop?
That's a great question. I think that it takes some time at the initial part of the break to almost signal to yourself that it's okay to not be productive or to do something um, that needs to maybe be done. I think that I'm always looking and inventing things to do. I tell my friends and family that I don't have a chill. And so um, there was a moment in time where I was in between jobs and was taking on projects that I probably had no business taking on. I was like, you know, putting hardwood floors in a room of my house and making wine and just doing things that and I think that's kind of how I handle breaks is maybe taking on new things, new projects. I recently just bought a sourdough starter kit. I'm gonna take that on and try my hand at that. Probably fail at some level with it, but I think that that's my maybe for me a break is a break from my status quo and pivoting into something that's new or different. And that's kind of how I feel like my brain recharges in some ways.
So okay, so I mean, you said you might fail at your sourdough starter.
Yeah.
So what would failing be? I mean, what would that be? Like the thing breaks down, or you forget
Yeah.
about it, be or
A really bad bake, like maybe, I mean, you sourdough, you're working with a live culture, right? And keeping that thing alive. Like I've heard it, like people have these things for generations. And so I can imagine in my situation forgetting to feed this thing and it dies, or who knows, like maybe and it's funny because like when I got the kit that I bought for the sourdough starter, it came with like a card, and the card explicitly said, you are going to fail at this, but you will also probably succeed at some point. So it set the expectation out the gate is that there are going to be moments where you're going to try and like, have your starter, take care of that. But then also like everything is super specific as far as like the ingredients. And so, how you bake it, how much you let it proof, how much you let it rise. Like it's all a science. And so I think a lot of it is getting used to how to work with that. So we'll see. It's a new adventure for me.
and I remember hearing something about with people who make beer, like their first time is usually the best time, and then because the quality control is so there, and you're trying to do
Oh,
everything much by the book, and then after that, like it never becomes
okay.
as. I don't know if that'd be the same for a starter. And then I've also seen people with the scobies, the kombucha
Yes.
starter, the same thing.
Yep.
they have these ones. Someone will give you a part of one that's been growing in their cupboard for
Yep.
35 years, and this is crazy. Little
Scobies
thing.
are the weirdest thing. I've done kombucha too before, and they're just like little aliens. They're so weird.
It's just like a lava lamp almost.
Yeah,
This thing sitting in your cupboard, and I've never
exactly.
done one. And what prompted you to do the sourdough? Was that having a break right now, having extra time to do something, you wanted to fill it, or did
Yeah,
somebody
no, I don't know what prompted it. I think here's what prompted it. If you really want to know the truth, I
do?
was watching I was watching TikTok videos in bed, and there was someone who was making this pumpkin sourdough loaf, and I was like, I can do this. And so I got on Amazon Prime and bought a sourdough kit. That's the story of it. Is I was just like, yeah, I think I'm gonna try that.
Okay.
Not a super like good story, but that's what happened. Good marketing, I guess, for TikTok.
Hopefully they got the commission from their.
Right?
So you're I believe somewhere close to my age, and
Yeah.
so what do you do on TikTok? What's your TikTok like? Because I like asking people who are above, people who are above 20 years old. What do you like on TikTok?
Yeah,
What got
right. Yeah, as a 21-year-old, just kidding. I am very much a spectator. I have a very private profile and just, watch movies. At one point in time, when I was working at another global development organization, I was producing content, but I don't do that anymore. So
Okay, so was
yeah,
that
not
for what reason?
something any exciting. Yeah.
Was that when you did you still feel that need to take in the content, or is that just kind of always something that's going on? Because I mean, TikTok is
Yeah.
like people like to shit on TikTok, but TikTok, I mean, it's what you make it. Like
Mhm.
if people want to say TikTok's stupid, it's like, well, then you're feeding that algorithm. That's on
Yes.
you making it stupid. Like it's pretty awesome when you have it set up and it has what you like, what you do, and
Yeah. Well, and I think, I mean, in some ways, it's an answer to just the plethora of choices that we have when it comes to streaming services. And I get decision fatigue when I'm wanting to relax on like, what show should I watch? And it's almost easier to just have a program that just feeds you what you've already kind of indicated you want to see instead of you having to go out and find it. And so that is something I think that TikTok has done in a lot of ways. So and I like too that it allows everyday people to be able to have a platform. I think it kind of flattens our hierarchy of people in society where they're able to have a voice. And if it's a voice that people want to listen to, they create a following. And so, there's I think some benefits to the platform in that reason too, even as it relates to just people being able to share certain viewpoints. So
I mean, I don't think I'd ever thought about that because yeah, I mean, it just starts playing right away. You don't have to
mhm.
go pick it out. So do you go to the For You page, or are you going to your followers, or how does that work? Do you just
Yeah, this is an interesting conversation. So I would say that what I typically do is just allow it to tell me, like almost like okay, so I just do whatever they feel like I need to see. But then if I feel like they're just getting it way off and I'm like, gosh, I don't want to see, like another fitness influencer right now, I will go to my followers and just be like, these are people that I have hand selected that I actually want to see. I'm tired of TikTok telling me what they think I want to see. They're getting it wrong right now. And so that's what I'll do.
I kind of forget about my followers sometimes, or the people that I'm following, not my followers,
Yeah.
people that I'm following. And then it's like, oh yeah, I totally forgot about this person, because they don't push them out that much. I don't feel like on the For You page. Like, I feel like they're sort of just, you have to like almost go and seek them out. There's like a couple people, but I think
Yeah.
as people, I'm, like we both follow each other, that they'll push those ones out. But the people that I'm following, that they're not following me, like I feel like they only really pop up if I go into the following, and then I just kind of forget
Yes.
about them. And they don't exist anymore until
Yeah.
pop back into that, whenever that is, whatever that is. So for as far as making content,
Mm.
so you're not making content on TikTok. You are
Not
a
anymore. Yeah,
what?
I work in global development, and so that's a space that I feel like there's not a lot of education on, or I mean, even just, and I have no, I guess, research or data to back this up other than my own interactions with people, is that very few people understand maybe global situations, global humanitarian crises. And so I was hoping to maybe speak into that a little bit, given that that's my expertise and workspace. And so at the time I was working for an organization where we were building a clinic, and still are. I still work with them on a part-time basis, but we were building a clinic in Kenya. And so global health issues is something that I would say I'm really passionate about. And so I would speak on that pretty frequently. I currently work for an organization that builds safe water systems in Latin America and Haiti predominantly. And so, issues related to global water are also, I would say, very important to me as well. And I feel like there's not a lot of awareness related to that in our world today.
Yeah, I mean, since I'm, older than 20, 25 years ago,
Yeah.
in college, I remember my professor telling me like the most important thing is going to be like to have clean water rights, like to own clean water rights. That's like the thing that people should be investing in. And then that's like, I mean, now it's like, okay, you were totally right about that one. And I mean, clean water it's a huge. I mean, we need water for everything. Like, so was that what you sought out when you were going for that job, that or was it something that happened to be part of the job description, or was it how'd that work?
Yeah, so I've been in global development humanitarian work for over 10 years now. In previous positions was working more in like very acute humanitarian needs. So it was more based on like severe acute malnutrition. So babies that are wasting away. We see that a lot in sub-Saharan Africa, certain parts of Asia. High neonatal mortality, where there's, I think the statistic is 7,000 newborns die every day. Most of them are from preventable causes. And so we were working to provide safe births predominantly in South Asia and sub-Saharan Africa. I pivoted from that role into other global development work, and water, I think, has a particular draw, because I think there's a quote from the UN that says that one of the biggest ways to solve global poverty is by access to safe water. And so in looking at our world today, 2 billion people lack access to safe water at some level. And so our organization works particularly in very rural and remote areas where the water purification challenges are very hard to solve. So yeah, I think overarching thought related to your question, though, is I just have, I think, a passion for a person who is, I would say, in a relative position of power and ability to be able to help and bring some sort of justice to those in the world that, are trapped by poverty and by these types of situations that they did not create for themselves. So if we're able to provide solutions that I think really produce transformation of these communities, we recently just inaugurated a project in rural Mexico, and what that means for the community is just going to be transformative. This is a community that's been waiting for safe water for years and years. And generations, thinking that it would never come to them. And then what it means for them from a health perspective. I mean, you think about at any moment in time, 50% of the world's hospital beds are full of somebody who has a waterborne illness, that is a key driver of illness in our world. So I think about what that means for health. I think about what that means for opportunity and the ability for people to have livelihoods when they're able to, wash their clothes and have hygienic environments as a result of having safe water. It's just truly transformative. And so I think that's where I find a lot of meaning. Appreciate a job that allows me to have that in my life personally.
So one of the things, a little side note, so I go back to TikTok. I saw that with hospital beds with the sheets, like the sheets are usually a polyester blend of some sort, but they used to use linen. But then but this was probably something to. Well, actually, I know it was. It was something to sell, linen sheets and
Yeah.
linen clothes, but the linen has a certain frequency of a healing frequency, whereas
Hmm.
polyester is, not something
Yeah,
that.
I can see that.
And so then with the water, is it so? I mean, how is there like how's the word getting to you that these people need water purification? Is there some sort of there are people like going out to these places and saying like, oh, this water is not good and needs to be treated, or is it like someone going on to I don't know, dialing a collect phone number or something and saying, hey, we need help out here? um, I don't know, how's that work?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. So in most parts of the world, people are purifying their own water, and so that uh, that task falls predominantly on women and girls, and so that's creates a disproportionate impact as it relates to education and even forms of gender-based violence. Um, so they already know their water is impure because they're having to purify it, and sometimes often that's boiling. Sometimes boiling isn't enough and can still lead to illness if there's contaminants in it that aren't extracted just from boiling it. And so at least that's the case where we see where our work is. And so we actually have staff in the countries where we work. And so they build relationships with the communities, community leaders. We work in partnership with them, ultimately to create a system that is going to allow the community to own and operate their system. We don't want to be pushing in from, the United States or from outsiders with a solution. We want that community to own their water system. So we empower them to do that. There is a level of just health education that is a core part of our model to just ensure that they're able to adopt practices that will allow them to utilize their safe water. There's just behaviors maybe that they have adopted as a result of not having access to clean water that we work to educate on, just so that they're able to utilize now having safe water, because that is, obviously having access to a resource that you didn't have before is a shift. And so there's going to be behavior change that's needed as a result of that. And so, even just, for example, we work in rural, remote Mexico, in the state of Chiapas. Well, Chiapas is the largest consumer of Coke products because Coke is perceived as safer than, or it is safer than water to drink, as well as cheaper than water to drink. So a lot of people are also just spending large portions of their budgets on clean water or purifying their water. They do both. And so education is required on maybe the negative impacts of drinking so much sugary drinks and how that can lead to things like diabetes and that type of thing. So that is a key piece of our work as well.
So is there anything going on in the States?
For pure water, I believe so. It's not the space that I work in. There are definitely projects and organizations that work within that space, but I would say that disproportionately, other parts of the developing world suffer with this problem more than, by and large. There are parts where water is not to drink entirely in the U.S., but I don't think it's at the level that it is in the places where we work.
Yeah. So are you going out to these places then, or are you the local ambassador to these areas?
Yeah, I would. So I was actually supposed to be in Guatemala in August, and we had to postpone that trip. So I'm hoping to go soon. I haven't done any travel with my current organization, but I've traveled quite extensively on humanitarian trips in previous positions. So, my role is it's better served, I would say, for the locals and the people that are from that country to run programs. So for my position, just our ability to bring awareness is what I help do, versus me actually stepping in and trying to run a program or do anything like that there. So,
Right. So then with your last position, so was that, I don't want to get you, try not to get you into a tricky question here with this
sure.
one. But so what was it about the position you're in now that I guess that led you to this position? Like what was it that stood out that was the alignment for you that got you to say, hey, this is where I should be focusing now? Or, I mean, you could say it was for, they gave you a lot of, 75 sourdough starter kits or something, or whatever your motivation was. What was it about this one?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that in my own general journey, as far as, so in my previous position, I worked there for 8 years. I kind of came in with, I would say, a lot of people who are in my work maybe can tend to be, which is with almost like this sense of I'm going to save the world, almost kind of like I'm trying to think of how to frame it, like this puffed up view of like my abilities as a white woman in America to solve the world's problems. Highly idealistic, almost self-aggrandizing, I would say, feeling like this sense of like conquering the world, and then getting into the space and kind of being kicked on my butt a few times, recognizing the vastness of these challenges and issues. And then also that, I mean, there is a definite toll that seeing human suffering can take on you, and the amount of, they call it compassion fatigue, that can set in as a result. And so that was definitely taking place in my travels in my previous position, going to places like sub-Saharan Africa, where I'm seeing young babies die from preventable causes, and just seeing the failures of their systems, and wanting to change those types of things. And so but being maybe unwilling to do so no matter what. And then also just recognizing too, just how entangled and systemic these issues are, and how one thing is really relying on another in so many ways. And so solving one aspect of it maybe solves it for a little bit, but unless you're able to completely change the entire system, which we don't have the power to do, it's not going to produce the sustainable change that's needed. And so coming into the work that I am doing now, I feel like there is a much more systemic approach to how we come into these communities that is empowering them and solving a key and core issue that is going to be a ripple effect for other core and key issues that I think is going to be more like transformative and sustainable in the long run. And so I think, just learning about, global development work and our role as true outsiders to these problems is what role we should play. And I think that has evolved over time for me in a lot of ways, and seeing myself now definitely as not a savior of any means or form or fashion, but just someone that can help. And that's the role that I want to take, and I'm able to take in this position. So.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you said 2,000 babies die or every day?
7,000.
Seven from
preventable causes. Mm-hmm.
That includes the lack of water as well as other factors, or is that?
I mean, you think about how intertwined safe water is.
Sure. Just
having good sanitation. Infection is one of the main reasons why, and that's newborns dying, but then think about the maternal mortality and how many mothers die in the course of pregnancy. A lot of mothers in sub-Saharan Africa are giving birth without a skilled birth attendant. And so that is taking place. They're giving birth without a hygienic environment, which is where water comes in, and the access to safe and clean water. If they're using tools that have not been properly cleansed, during that process, what that can do for infections, and how that often leads to maternal and neonatal deaths is a common dynamic that happens in that space. And so it's all interwoven in so many ways in these contexts.
Yeah. And so I remember being a kid, and I remember hearing so much about stuff of this nature, but the last, I don't know, 30 years, I mean, how much have you really heard about any of this? I feel like it's really been swept under the rug, and I don't know what the reasoning was for that. If it's too much for us to handle, if it's too depressing of a story, and they don't want that to be, they want something else, some other narrative to be pushed other than there's a shit ton of suffering going on right now with many people being negatively affected horribly. Like I don't know the last time I heard anything about this in more than just a quick little blip of information. There hasn't been. Maybe I'm just not in the main loops of what's going on. I don't know. I don't pay attention a bunch to the news and a lot of other things. But I mean, it hasn't been for 30 years that I haven't been paying attention. But I mean, I just feel like I haven't really seen much information about this at all. And why do you think that is, or am I wrong on that?
Yeah, I mean, like I do think that we here in the West are able to comfortably isolate, even to a degree from suffering that occurs within our own backyard, so to speak. We're able to insulate ourselves and live lives that, I would say that their suffering does not impact us. It does not touch us. We don't experience it. And so we don't have to worry about it in a lot of ways. I do think that there is, like there is, I would say, still some initiatives out there that bring awareness. But I agree. I think that there, by and large, is a lot of people who have no exposure to the level of suffering that occurs around our world. I think that we see things maybe in, there's definitely are stories in the news cycles that would maybe create some sort of awareness. And a lot of that is oftentimes related to conflicts that are happening in our world. Those, which, make sense, hit our news cycles, and we see the suffering that is caused by conflict. I would say that the more status quo type suffering that occurs on a frequent basis, that isn't these acute type situations, those are the ones that maybe kind of fly under the radar. So like the water crisis and just the suffering that produces every day. Or severe acute malnutrition and the amount of deaths that produces every day. That particular condition can oftentimes be related to conflict and is, as we're seeing in Gaza, but that also happens in other places of like sub-Saharan Africa where there isn't conflict. It's just like this status quo situation where there's just extreme forms of poverty. And so I think that there is a level of we really don't have a concept or understand what is taking place around the world here in the United States, and we're very easily able to isolate ourselves from those types of things, which is sad in a lot of ways, because I think that there is a certain level of us being the most wealthy and resource country that we're able to provide, even just with people who, I don't think that people fully understand the suffering that's caused as and I make one quick political statement and we don't need to go there, but I don't think that people realize the amount of suffering that's going to be caused and has been caused by the cutting of USAID. And a lot of that is just because of people's lack of exposure to the suffering that is around the world. And me, as somebody who actually speaks with people who receive those funds and implement programs based off of those funds, the suffering that is going to be caused and the deaths that are going to be caused as it relates to that being cut is going to be huge. It's going to be massive. It's going to put countries back years and years, which is truly tragic in a lot of ways.
Sure. So is this going to be people that, to restrict the aid? Is this because of funding, or is this because of them saying like they don't need our help, and it's giving some sort of whatever, some sort of like basically we don't need the U.S. and it's giving U.S. ideals into them or something to that effect? Is that the reasoning, or is it lack of funds, or is it something else?
I mean, so the U.S. cut USAID, so funds and programs that countries were implementing and receiving are now no longer operating. So this was purely on the U.S. side of our government cutting USAID funds. As a practical example, working with our clinic in Kenya, as they were implementing HIV programs, preventative programs that really were making that disease and the disease's impact almost, I mean, I don't want to say non-existent, but it was under control in so many ways in sub-Saharan Africa. Without these types of programs, that we could see that virus surge back up in sub-Saharan Africa. And we think, as you know, and I think I mentioned earlier that we're isolated from the suffering of others. There will be a trickle-down effect on how that could potentially impact us here in the United States as well. Seeing surges of these viruses that were once contained. So, that's a practical example of something that was being funded by USAID, is no longer available, and what that means both for that continent and then potentially how that could implicate the entire world in a lot of ways. So me working directly with people in the field, and there's other organizations that were relying on those funds to implement water systems around the world, and now have to go find other sources of funding. It's just stuff like that that we're going to see be hit as a result of this.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's almost not until it happens to us that something's going to be really even addressed at a large level, which is
and I don't think that we fully know the downstream effects of what this is going to be. There's going to be impacts and effects to this that, like, things that we had made so much progress on as it relates to development in our world, that we don't know how the downstream impacts of certain programs being cut are going to truly impact our world and our nation. We are not isolated. We live in a global space and are impacted by other countries and what happens in other countries. We cannot isolate ourselves completely from that. And so I think that it's going to be years down the road that we are going to feel some of these impacts.
Yeah. And so, I mean, when that happens, then what do you think? I mean, this is hypothetical then, so it's kind of hard to really.
I mean, it's hypothetical, but the data supports it in a lot of ways. I mean, with global travel and even just globalization, who knows what is going to happen as it results. I mean, especially a hypothetical, but maybe likely situation as, certain access to resources like water and food security create overall security in countries, that when those things start to disintegrate and we start to see maybe rise of conflict over resources in parts of Africa and parts of Asia, wherever that may be, we're going to be impacted by that as a country as it relates to our ability to obtain, say, resources from that area as well. We rely on parts of Africa for certain resources for our own supply chains and goods and that type of thing. And so if that area is in fact in conflict, how is that going to impact us? And so it's all interlinked and tied together in a lot of ways. And so again, I don't know exactly how that's going to play out, but I could see that potentially being, with all of this, there's going to be impacts. I can just say that almost definitively.
So, like something with like cobalt mining, which is, I don't know if I mean, that's something. I mean, here we are on our computers with our phones and everything. I mean, and those conditions are unreal. What's going on with that, and but our need for that, like we need that, and and everyone needs that. And I mean, that may be something that's going to be addressed if there starts being, but I don't know. I mean, there's always going to be so many people that are going to want that, because that ends up being one of the ways for people to make money. Is not a, a you know, a good living by any stretch, and with how dangerous and toxic it is. It's, you know, but I mean, then that takes a lot of water too. It takes a lot of that, um, you know, a lot of water that region could be using, but it's being used for the mining of cobalt, so we can
Yeah.
have all of our devices, or, you know, any, you know, thing with basically anything that makes batteries, or, you know, any
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
things that
good
make,
example. Mhm.
yeah, or, you know, diamond mining, that all that fun stuff that that we can't really seem to live without here in this part of the world.
Yeah.
And but I don't know how, what the workaround is, but I think a lot of people, I mean, what would happen? What would happen if that was all of a sudden cut off? And you know, then I think there would maybe be some light shined on what's going on with the lack of the resources for anyone living in those areas. And it's not just areas with the, you know, with the mining, and like you were saying, it's all over the world, and a lot,
Yeah.
you know, different places. And I don't know what would really happen. And again, that's back to hypothetical situations, but who knows?
Well, and I think too, I mean, there's just such, and maybe it's an evolutionary bias, but I think that there's such a tendency for us to look at the world with scarcity and competition of resources and as a zero sum game. And I think that we would benefit more if the entire world was stable. I mean, think about just the amount of resources that are lost in conflict and in war. We'd benefit, all of us would benefit from a more stable, peaceful world. And so I think that there is a lot to be gained by ensuring that that's the case in other parts of the world. And I think that a level of an approach of scarcity versus abundance really drives us to operate this way. And if we look throughout history, we can see that that has not gone well for us in a lot of ways. And what that means for humanity has not gone well for us. So I don't know how to cause that to shift, in that we would view the world more as, you know, if we help each other. And this is something that I appreciate about the work that I do in water. We work to implement solutions that we would want here in the United States. So it's not just the bare minimum, you know, once you have access to water for drinking, that's enough. We want to give people in these areas water for all uses. And I think that that's the take, is giving people lives that produce thriving, wholeness. When people aren't operating out of a sense of fear or lack or poverty, I think about what type of world that could look like, and how different it could be. And I think it's, maybe that's utopian of me in a lot of ways, but I don't really care. I think that that's a world we have yet to see, and I hope to see. I don't know if it will happen in my lifetime, but
you're setting it on the path.
I hope so. I hope so. One step at a time. I do think that there have been things that have happened recently that set us way back, which is discouraging to see. But hopefully that would be just a blip in the progress that we've already made.
So do you think that people such as digital nomads, expats, going to these places is going to be more beneficial because it's kind of shedding a light on this situation more? Because, like with us getting priced out so much here in the States, a lot of people are going to a lot of more developing countries, and are they staying in these areas, or are they, going out further into these less developed areas? And is that going to be what's going to be shining light on it, or is that going to price people out more? Or, um, you know, I don't know. It's kind of a weird question, more of a statement, I guess. But
Yeah, and I don't know that I have the answer for that. That's an interesting, I think, thought experiment on what could happen as, drivers here in the United States would maybe push us to other areas. I mean, that's an interesting thought for sure that I don't know that I have fully processed or thought about, and definitely want to consider as far as what that means. As it relates to your question on awareness, though, I do think that there is a level of, and I grew up in the era of, especially here in the Christian West, where we, I think, really love to see ourselves as saviors in a lot of ways. And there's a whole, I'm sure, psychology as to why that is as it relates to the Christian faith in particular. But I grew up with people, it was very in vogue to go on missions trips and to go with your church and think that you're doing this transformative work because you're basically taking over local labor and building a house that you are not qualified in any way, shape, or form to build, or, to do something that is just, disruptive to these societies and that you're going into. I do think that maybe on the positive side would create some awareness as it relates to the, situations and suffering of others in these contexts of the world. I do think that there's a better way of maybe just being able to travel and seeing these situations firsthand and meeting these people face to face, being able to hear their stories. I mean, we are wired for connection. We're wired for empathy. We're wired to care. I believe no matter what people say, that by and large, I think humanity, when we see someone who, even in a different context, community than ours, witnesses suffering, that there is a part of us collectively that wants to do something about it, even if we are an outsider. So I do think that there is a sense of the benefits of travel and exposure create awareness and almost a sense of, I would say, collectivism, and that there's something that if I can speak for my own travels, that going to sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, seeing things that I saw there will forever be imprinted on me, and be drivers for the work that I do, because I have actually seen and are aware of the suffering that happens around the world that many other people aren't privy to. And so I can speak to that, hopefully be an amplifier of it in a lot of ways. But I do think that there is a value in people being able to see these types of things firsthand and know that something can be done as it relates to these problems.
Yeah. And so, I mean, how does it go then from, like, if someone's over in whichever, and I'm even using words like someone's over there, not,
Yeah.
Like if they're taking pictures of them with a village of the people there for whatever, I don't know, because it can be, I don't know how thin that line is between
Sure.
awareness and clout.
Yeah, and exploitation, truly. Like,
Exploitation.
yeah, are you exploiting someone's situation, or are you bringing awareness to it? And that is definitely a line in a debate that we encounter in my workspace, is needing to be able to represent. And I think one of the main things that I would say to that point is that the person that whose story you're telling and maybe whose picture you're showing, were they, and it's hard because there's always power dynamics, but was there a sense of agency? There are people that are very willingly wanting to share their story and are telling it from an empowered place, versus you as an outsider pushing in on them and trying to get something from them they don't want to give, or maybe feel forced to give. Like if they are coming to you willingly and wanting to share, from an empowered place, their situation, I think that is different than like us pushing in and trying to take something that isn't given to us in a lot of ways. That there is, and to your point, there is definitely a sense of entitlement here that we have, or I've seen it going into these areas, that we think we can just, because we're providing a service and a needed service, that we can just take what we want from these people. And that is not the case. I always try to approach these situations with, how are we creating places of choice and agency and empowerment. And I love telling stories more through the lens of that than from, from maybe a disempowered, poverty place. So, telling the story of a woman who, is now excited because after years of wanting safe water is now receiving it, and what that meant for her and her family and how transformative that was. That's an empowering story versus a hopelessness or a place of despair, if that makes sense. So that is a line that I think we walk, though, in my space for sure, is wanting to really do right by the communities that we serve and the people that we serve.
Yeah, and so I have one last question here. So with you
Sure.
traveling all over the world, and uh, what does vacation become? What is vacation? Because I mean, you're going to the
Yeah.
amazing places, but this it's not vacation. And then so this kind of a two-part. So then, what is vacation? And then, is vacation for you having a very planned out itinerary, or is it you plan nothing?
These are great questions.
Thanks.
I would say it depends. So there's an aspect even in my vacations, and I'm sure you can just see through things that I've said as well, that includes exploration, whatever that looks like, is I love to explore and experience culture and experience, things as they are, not like something that was curated for a tourist experience.
Sure.
That frustrates me. Like if I go to a place and it's like this pristine, like almost like adult theme park that has been created for the purpose of tourism. I don't love that. I want to experience the rawness of culture, of food, of whatever that particular area involves, even if it is on vacation. That is, I would say, relaxing. So case in point, I brought my son to New York City last year for his birthday. That was our vacation. And while I typically like to have a few things scheduled, things that we definitely want to do. He loves skyscrapers. And so that was something that we really focused on. We did, I think, most of the main ones in New York, but then kept it somewhat open so it didn't feel too scrunched or too hectic, where we allowed ourselves to explore. And I think that for me, that's what vacation is you kind of allow yourself that freedom to be able to just allow the place almost dictate what you do versus you trying to fit in some sort of itinerary. So that's if that answers your question, I would say it's kind of a blend of both of those things.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess I have one little follow up. So what was your favorite part of New York? I was very much, I'm not going to like New York. But then I was living close and I went there. I don't know how many times. I went there a number of times and I was like, I want to hate it. I want to hate it. But like,
I just can't. I loved it too. I think, I mean, and this was such a touristy, I mean, I feel like it was, but it was such a special moment. I think because I shared it with my son. We did a nighttime boat ride around the harbor with like a jazz band playing on the boat. Like he had his hot chocolate, I had my red wine. And it just felt like just this special, like being able to see the city lights, with great music. It was just a very, like there's those key moments in life that you just remember as being so incredibly special. A lot of that I think has to deal with the people that you're with at that moment in time. And for me, being able to share that with my son was incredibly meaningful for me. But that was definitely my favorite part, was that. I will say too, the food, our Denver food scene is getting better, but it's definitely not anywhere near what it is in New York. And so we just ate our way through the city, really.
Okay, I guess I have one more question. Have you been to Casa Bonita yet?
Not the new. So I grew up here. So I've been to Casa Bonita several times growing up. I have not been since they've renovated it. No.
Okay.
I need to. I keep getting their emails, so I need to pop over with my kid. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I went there I think in 2019 or something. It was
really?
Yeah.
Such a funny place.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. I was like, I don't like to. It wasn't anything I'd ever thought I'd go to, but it just like ended up taking a trip to Denver, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
I need to get on close, and then
go to Casa Bonita.
took the bus out there, and I was like, it's like one of the last stops on the bus route, and I was like, where am I right now? What is this? And then it's
what
like,
is this place?
here I am in this parking lot. Yeah, I guess that's it over there, and then
it's such a landmark. It's so funny how popular it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And so how are people going to find you? How do they connect? How do they?
Yeah. I'm on Facebook. You can just find me at Heidi Johnson. But then my organization's healingwaters.org. So visit me there.
Excellent. Yeah. Thanks so much for being on, Heidi. And I'm glad I got to ease back in with an easy interview. So our conversation.
Good. I'm glad you feel that way. This was fun.
Absolutely. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. And hopefully you get out to Casa Bonita at some point soon.
And, you jog my memory. I need to take my son there. That's a good plan.
Yeah. Has he never been?
I don't think he has. Yeah, I need to take him. I'm failing as a mom, apparently. Like, I need to take him.
Go see the Coop Jumpers, have some sopapillas, and whatever else you need to do.
Exactly.
Excellent. Well, yeah, have a great rest of your day, and we'll stay in touch.
All right, sounds good, Rusty.
All right, bye, Heidi. Bye. All right, that's Heidi Johnson. So thank you, everyone, for being here on the Public Access Podcast. Back to it. Find me out, rustydiamond.net. That's easy. You can do that. Or I have a bunch of other steps. Get my book. I have 2 books. Probably one, probably be, I have a real small one. Small book. So you can go there, and there's a big book too. But there's that. You can go to rustydiamond.net, go to hypnosisisgreat.com, worldclasscustoms.com if you want any stuff for your action figures, dolls, whatever. We got you. I got the best dude doing that. He'll make accessories, he'll make clothes, whatever you want. No one does it better. So thank you everyone for being here on the Public Access Podcast. And that is the show. Man, boom.
It's Rusty Diamond, motherfucker. It's Rusty Diamond, motherfucker.